All right. So moving on to our next presenter, and that is Mr. Stacy Budd, Pre-Sales Principal Consultant at Arcserve, and Christophe Bertrand, Vice President of Product Marketing. Stacy and Christophe, are you there?
Yes, we are. It's Christophe here.
And Stacy's here as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Go ahead. Take it away. Thanks for being on.
Thank you much, and welcome to this session where we're going to cover quite a bit. We also have a demonstration, so I'll try to go through a few slides, but really what I'd like to do is turn it over at some point to Stacy so that you can learn a little more about our product and see it in the flesh. So one thing I haven't quite told you is we're certainly a very successful business. We've been growing very fast, but my partner in crime today had a previous career in entertainment. So you'll get a chance to chat with him a little later, and we'll have plenty of time for questions, so please go ahead and send us your questions. So let's get started. First of all, Arcserve. Some of you may know the name from the past. What you may not know is that we've been independent for 2.5 years now. Very successful business. We've got great investors who have helped us build up our business globally. We're doing really well globally with a presence in many geographies and great growth. One of the things that sets us apart is our focus on the mid-market. So we have devised a solution that I'll talk about in a minute that is unified, that is easy to use, but that also has enterprise-like features, but combined with simplicity and ease of use. So we'll go through some of that, and you'll see the product for yourself. We have a number of great awards to our name. We are really specialized in virtualization. We do extremely well with virtual environments. We actually have a very broad feature set, including the ability to leverage virtualization in many type of environments, not only on-premise, but also in the cloud. So lots of capabilities there, probably too many for me to go through in the next few minutes. And again, we're really the fastest growing vendor in the mid-market. We're very proud of that. So let's get into the solution, which is called Arcserve Unified Data Protection. And I think the name says it all. What it is, what we've done is we've put together, rebuilt an architecture from scratch that's the newest architecture in the market today that combines enterprise class with ease of use for teams that are, don't have a lot of experts necessarily. I mean, you could see from the poll, some of you are alone or in a small team of a few people, very likely IT generalists, in that you have to do quite a bit. 1 minute you're fixing a laptop, the next you're trying to figure out how to recover a big server that has just crashed. So all of these dimensions we understand. That's what we've devised, a solution that gives you the ease of use that allows you to be very dangerous very quickly, but also all the capabilities you would expect from having very low recovery point objectives and very low recovery time objectives, just like in the enterprise. So on premises, we protect essentially virtual environments, physical environments. That's one of the things that sets us apart. Many vendors claim physical server support. Well, there's a lot more that meets the eye. It takes quite a few years of IP and work in R&D to really get it right, and that's only our heritage. We've been able to port that and leverage it. Of course, virtual environments, as well as applications with the ability to do granular restore, for example, for exchange environments, something that you should really think about very closely as you look at the next solution you want to implement. Now, our recovery point server that you see is the backup server, really. It's also the brains of the operation. It comes with global deduplication, source-side global deduplication. That's a capability that very few vendors have. In the mid-market, we're the only ones who have it. And it's very important because it gives you a lot of, provides you with a lot of savings, a lot of capabilities, a lot of operational efficiencies. So that replication that I'm showing here is built in. So maybe you have a couple of satellite offices or subsidiaries and you're one of them, and you want to actually back up those environments as well. You can do that. Replication is included in UDP, so no extra licensing, no complications. And we also offer an appliance. So you can deploy the solution as software, or you can deploy it as an appliance, where, again, everything is included in the appliance. Now, you could also have a third party or maybe a disaster recovery site where you want to have your data maybe put onto tape or whatever the case may be. And by the way, we support tape, and we truly support tape, not just a checkbox on a data sheet. Something that for some of you may not matter, but for some of you may be important. So just know that we have that expertise as well. And the more important and final point I wanted to make, and by the way, all of these arrows that you see show replication streams. Our replication is WAN optimized, so it's really efficient. And because we deduplicate the data, and because our deduplication is global, it means that you never send a block over the wire twice if we already have it in our store and we've replicated it to a secondary location. If we see that block again, we don't necessarily need to transmit it. We keep a tally of it, and we know that this system has the same block that we already have. So it makes the backups faster. It makes also the ability to replicate data a lot easier using less bandwidth. And on top of that, we've optimized replication. We support public cloud. Really very full and rich support. We have our own cloud offering as well, running our technology, but you can leverage disaster recovery as a service type of capabilities in Amazon, for example, with very advanced options, something that, again, sets us apart. So when I say enterprise class, but small team simple, I really mean that. All of this is available to you in a very simple, easy-to-use product. So this is a bit of a summary of what I've just talked about, telling you more about some of the capabilities, and there are so many to mention that I'm not going to go through each of the bullet points, but just know that in essence, our mission, our objective is to make your recoverability of your data and systems easy. And that means we also provide you with the ability to do some testing, disaster recovery testing. We automate that for you, and we provide you with great reports, like recovery point objective reports and recovery time objective reports. And I say objective, and I should say actual. So you can really set an objective and then go measure how well you do. And we automate all of that for you. What it gives you, the net, is the ability to then take that to management and potentially demonstrate that there are some exposures that you need to take care of. And by the way, it's something we've seen quite a bit around ransomware. I'll talk about that in a minute. Our global deduplication, as I mentioned, is very important. It's something that really gives you a lot of bang for the buck. If you do not do global source size deduplication, and there are many terms out there, so it sounds like, okay, everybody's doing dedupe. Well, that's not true. There are different types of deduplication technologies out there. Ours is source side, so we do it at the source, but the heavy work, the heavy lifting happens at the backup server, so your source systems that are being backed up don't get bogged down or anything like that. It's a very light process. And we leverage a number of technologies like change block tracking and things like that. So we do the heavy lifting. We do this at the source, and we really optimize that process so that your backups, once you've done your first full backup, or anytime we see a block we've seen before, we don't back it up. We just, as I said, keep a tally of it. That makes your backups very fast. We leverage an incremental forever type of technology that allows us to never have to do a full backup again, or do a full backup on a regular basis. Some technologies require that. It's because they don't do incremental forever very cleanly. But that's important because that's the benefit of having a modern design and a new design, a new architecture. We can take that, we can apply deduplication, and we can make the backups go faster, use less bandwidth on your local network, and also replicate, make it easier to replicate to out of region or to a secondary site you may have. The point I was making about ease of use is really the fact that you can get everything at your fingertips with dashboards, with simple reports. You'll see ease of use in action in a demonstration that Stacy will give you in a minute, and I think that will speak for itself. But just look at this. I mean, you get a sense for what's going on. What type of data you can recover, where you're at. Those recovery point objectives and time objectives reports are very, very important and very, very critical. I was talking about ransomware. What's funny is that we were just chatting. We work with a number of partners in the ecosystem and some specialists that know quite a bit about ransomware and the detection of ransomware. We see clearly an emergence of this issue, and it brings up the question of backup and recovery. That's why I mentioned it. So, by the way, when you're a data protection company or backup and recovery type of company, you can't improvise yourself as a security company. So we don't do security. We work with partners whose job it is, day in and day out, who have spent years and years of R&D understanding how to detect threats, how to stop them, etc. And what's interesting is that I was just talking to one of our partners called ThreatTrack about ransomware, and there is this sort of myth that if you detect it, because you're seeing some encryptions happening or stuff like that, right? Which, of course, should really be a problem. Well, when it starts happening and you get a flag, well, it's too late. It's too late. So any sort of predictive stuff will not help you much, right? So essentially, the minute you see a ransomware note or an encrypted file, it's too late. And by the way, every attack is different. It's always different, actually, as a matter of fact. And typically, it can be also something that morphs over time. So the point I'm making is having a good understanding of a recovery point objective and recovery time objective will help you greatly when you have to fight a ransomware attack. But just know that there is nothing you can really do once you see the encryption. You have to stop it. At that point, you're going to be at some point soon after you've cleaned up the infection in a recovery mode. And I think that's the net. So get great security software to complement your backup strategy. So one final point, I mentioned the appliance. We have a series of appliances, which we call the UDP Appliance 8000. Great technology. We have enterprise class, again, technology in it, but take a look at the capabilities. We have great reviews. It's been a great business for us. A lot of you have adopted the appliance as a deployment model. That means it's a lot easier. You get everything in one box. Something to consider. Not everybody offers that. So there are plenty of other capabilities we could talk about, but I think it would be easier if we had an actual demonstration from Stacy about this. So I know there'll be some questions. Go ahead. Don't be shy. We'll try to take as many as we can. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Stacy Budd, who is our pre-sales consultant, and is about to show you. Oh, look at that beautiful screenshot, Stacy.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Christophe, for the introduction. Hello, everybody. What we're going to do is we're going to go through and show some of the just high level how UDP is used, how it's not really implemented. Of course, we do offer, in-depth demonstrations, trials, things like that as well. But we thought we'd take a few minutes to kind of show you some of the key things, when it comes to the UDP solution, right? The ease of use, the RPO reporting, the RTO reporting, those kind of things, which are really going to help you better kind of position the product, okay? If you have a better understanding of, what kind of RPOs you are hitting, right, that can kind of help you address things, as well as, are you hitting those RTOs that you have in place, the recovery time objectives. Some of these can be automated. Some of them would be manual tests that we would then report on those tests as well. So we're in the first portion of the interface. It's a browser-based tool, so we've logged into and I've skipped, the login screen. I didn't figure anybody really wanted to see that, but, this screen is going to pretty much show us the state of our backups. It's going to show us the state of our storage that you're backing up to, and we can see the benefits of our deduplication, how much actual storage we're taking up as well. And then we can see those RTO reports, right? So within the product, we can create SLA reports, right? Service level agreement report policies, if you will. Then we can have different machines and different policies. So I could say, my database servers, I need a different SLA, and maybe some of my application servers, and then I have some development servers, or maybe even some phone systems, right? Those can be down a little bit. It just really depends on your business and what's important to you. So you can create different SLA profiles, put different machines in different profiles. And then we have some automated testing. So right within the backup plans, you can do what we call an assured recovery test, where we'll take, and once the backup's completed, either immediately or on a schedule, we can test the latest plan, or we can test all your dailies, all your weeklies, all your monthlies, what you need to test, right? And we can actually take that backup and either do a virtual disk test, where we're going to basically take and do a check disk on that backup, or what we can do is we can mount it as a virtual machine, trigger scripts, those kind of things, and then make sure that everything works as well. So a number of different ways that we can do that assured recovery test. Now, this is not telling me success or failure. This is telling me that it completed in time. Okay. Also, we're going to, of course, have completions and failures and those kind of results as well. And you'll notice there's a couple here that I haven't ran. I haven't done any bare metal testing in this demo environment yet, and I haven't tested any virtual machine recovery. That's recovering a backup of a virtual machine back into a virtual environment. I haven't actually tested that yet, so it's telling me that's not tested. We do have some successfuls here on our instant virtual machine recovery. That's where we emulate that the virtual machine's back up and running. And then we have, of course, the ability to do file level restores, those kind of things. One of the key things to the UDP product is, and Christoph hit on this, is whether or not you're protecting physical machines, whether you're protecting virtual machines, Linux machines, Windows machines, you're doing backups, you're performing restores, you're performing disaster recovery. We want that process to be the same for you. Right? We also don't want you to go to different interfaces. We don't want you to have to go to different sections of the interface. In fact, with UDP, 90% of everything that you do, that's a made-up number, by the way, 90% is probably higher than that, you're going to do within this resource tab of the interface. This is where you're going to take and create your backup plans, manage your destinations that you're going to be backing up to, performing your restores, doing all of that right within here. And if we go into kind of like plan creation, I'm not going to actually create a plan, but just to show you, like if I go in and add a plan, right, and I go in, and this happens to be, an agent-based plan to start out with, so we'll just pick on Windows for a moment. It's going to be fairly simple. I'm going to define my source, my destination, my schedule, and then advanced will normally be notifications, log truncation, things like that, right? Hardware-based snapshots versus software snapshots, those kind of things. If I were to switch this to an agentless plan, right, so now I'm going to be leveraging VMware or Hyper-V's APIs, right, in order to back up agentless. The only really difference is that we're going to define a proxy that those hypervisors are going to present out the snapshot to, and then we're going to back up from that proxy, right? And a couple of rules about how the snapshots are created and transported and those kind of things, either on VMware or Hyper-V. Everything else, destination, schedule, those advanced options, those are all going to stay the same. Okay, so really, you don't have to worry about training yourself on multiple interfaces or anything like that either. Same thing when we talk about restores, right? So if I'm back in my case, I'm just looking at all the nodes. Of course, we can organize this so it's a little bit easier to look at there as well. And, we can easily just go into a machine, right-click on it, and we're going to have those options to back it up on the fly, to pause the plan if we want to do that, to perform what we call instant VM, which is going to emulate that the backup is a virtual machine. We actually have 2 levels of DR. Really, we have 3. So the first one is the one I just described, which is emulation, right? And it's quick and it's granular, and you can go to any of your backups that are sitting there on disk and be able to spin those up. It's a 4-step process. So if I was to go into this, and we'll just select it here real quick. It's a 4-step process. So we go in, we define the backup that I want to restore, and like I said, we're kind of crunched on time, so I'm not going to go through all 4 of those steps. But the next steps would be, what host do I want to present it out to? What server do I want to do the emulation? And then lastly, what kind of resources do I want to assign this machine? How much memory, processor, those kind of things. And keep in mind, again, it's a level of emulation, right? So we lose a little bit of performance, but we gain a lot of flexibility. This is great for testing. This is great for DR. Right, I could also take and convert this into a virtual machine if I needed to do actual virtual machine if I wanted to make it permanent. Now, other DR options we have is virtual standby, which gives you the ability to, instead of emulate, you actually create a virtual machine, and that gives you better performance at the cost of a little bit of storage, right? So you need to have, the storage in order to do that. I found that instant virtual machine is fantastic when recovering data from perhaps from ransomware or something like that. In fact, we have some use cases where customers have used it in order to do that, get machines back online quickly, and get that data up. It really is going to depend on that RPO, RTO, that you're going to set dependent on your servers. And the third option is kind of a high availability continuous replication option that you have with our product as well. So we kind of give you all of those options for recovery. And that's just the R side of things, right? If I wanted to go in and restore data, I can browse down to, if it was a virtual machine, I could recover the virtual machine. I could browse down to files and folders and restore that, of course. I could restore granular Active Directory. But again, this interface is always going to be the same, whether or not we're working with, physical machines, virtual machines, Windows machines, Linux machines. We're very, very cognizant of trying to keep all of our functions usually in 4 to 5 steps. Right? If we can't make it shorter, and then always, what's the experience going to look like cross-platform, right? So that you'll have that same experience there. Now, I think that I'm pretty close to my time, so I think I will go ahead and hand it back off to Christoph, and remind if anybody does want to see more about the UDP solution, our RPO reports or RTO reports, how it can help in your environment, reach out to us. We'd love to have a more in-depth, product demonstration for you and demo for you. So I'll go ahead and hand it back over to Christoph now.
Thank you, Stacy. So I guess we have time for questions, David, right?
Yes, sir, absolutely. Yeah, we have quite a few questions
Excellent.
from the audience. So let's just jump into it. First question here is they were asking about the instant recovery, I believe it was called, instant restore. How long does it typically take up to spin up the start of a restore like that?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I can spin up a machine in about 4 to 5 minutes. I've been actually on customer locations where they've spun them up even quicker. It is going to be determined a little bit. There's some different options you can do, like where the recovery server is, what the network speed is, some things that are out of our control, and different architectural reasons you might have different servers in different locations, not locations, but not all on one. So that would really determine that. But I've seen machines spun up in like 2-3 minutes. Again, it depends on the size of the machine too, as well.
Yeah, and there's also virtual standby, Stacy, which virtual standby essentially is, as the name indicates, and we're the only ones who do this, by the way, allows you to have a machine ready to go with the last backup of all the nodes in that virtual machine, so you can literally go back and activate that and take a look at those applications that you have with the last backup of them in that virtual standby machine. So that's another way to even reduce further recovery point objective and recovery time objectives.
Right. So that would, your recovery time on virtual standby would be the time it takes to boot that machine, and it would normally come up with the same name, same IP, unless you went in and made those changes.
Got it. There's a number of different compatibility questions here, so I'll just kind of list them out. Basically, sure. A number of different people are asking if you back up Mac, Windows, Linux, and then another question here is about, do you support the Acropolis hypervisor, and do you support scale computing?
Okay, so I'm going to take those a little bit out of order, okay? First, I'm going to take kind of on the hypervisor question. The agentless, we support VMware and Hyper-V, but we could do an agent-based backup regardless, right? So definitely, being able to do that, it still gives us a presence. No matter what hypervisor you're running, we should be able to still support that and perform things like instant virtual machine, virtual standby, of course, over to, a VMware or a Hyper-V machine for the standby environment, but it can still give you some DR capability as far as that goes. Windows and Linux is absolutely supported as far as that goes, and we do support Mac in a file-based backup solution. So we do support Mac machines in a file-based backup perspective, so we can back that up as well. And then, Christoph, you want to take the scale computing question there?
I'm not sure about scale computing, but for Acropolis, definitely something we're looking at. So no support today, but certainly something we're looking at and taking input on. One thing I wanted to mention to add to what Stacy said is, if you look at the Linux support, remember, it's one thing to support Linux as a source, for example, as you back it up. It's another to be able to recover and do bare metal recovery in general terms. And what's nice about our solution is we can do bare metal recovery to dissimilar hardware, including Linux, which is something that not everybody can do, and something you should care about, because the likelihood of having the same hardware when you have to do recovery, should anything happen physically to the environment, that likelihood is very low. So the BMR with dissimilar hardware is very key.
Yeah, and as part of that BMR, we don't have to be at the machine to do it. We can do a remote BMR. Right, we're watching for that IP or the MAC address to come online. We can start doing a bare metal restore in that method, and then on top of that, we can start using the machine before the actual machine is re-imaged. So as users go to access data, we'll fetch it. So on the Linux side, we can do a little bit. It's the only feature that we have that's not cross on both platforms right now. Is that ability right there. So it's pretty nice. Hopefully we'll see it on Windows soon.
Yeah, awesome. And then last question, I know because we're running out of time here, and that is about how is it licensed, and specifically they're also asking about different applications. If you go to Backup Exchange or Oracle or something, do you need different licenses for that?
So when it comes to the licensing, there's a couple of different licensing models. We have software, we have an appliance model. An appliance, we would work with you, right, on understanding the amount of data that you have, your retention, and we try to scale out and plan out an appliance for 3 years, right? We don't want to, if you have an explosion of growth that you didn't plan for, fantastic. That usually means your company's doing well. Right, so we do have methods where you can upgrade your appliance, you can refresh the appliance. So we do have different programs and things like that on there as well, in case you didn't get sized into the correct appliance as far as that goes. And on those appliances, we have they're different. Although they're different size appliance, they're also able to add additional storage to those appliances as well. So you're not always locked in to the amount of storage that you originally got it with there as well. Now, on the software side of things, we typically license either by the amount of data that you're protecting, so managed capacity type licensing, where we look at the amount of data, or we look at the number of sockets that you have in your environment. And we don't count virtual sockets, right? So it's the actual physical populated sockets. So in a virtual environment, it's the processors that are on the host itself that we're counting, and it's the populated processors. On physical machines, we're of course counting the physical processors on those physical machines.
Excellent. Well, I think that's all the time we have. Stacy and Christoph, great presentation today. Thanks so much for being on. If you don't mind joining us a little bit longer in the electronic Q&A, there's a lot of questions that are still left from the audience. Perhaps you can stay on and answer those electronically.
Absolutely.